Okay, so hello again, everyone. Good morning, and welcome to this market consultation in the context of the Mobipoint project. My name is Rita, and I work at Impact as a project manager. Among other, I work on this Mobipoint project. The main objective for you shared mobility providers today is to get better idea of what the Mobipoint project is, but mainly to get a better idea of the market potential of Mobipoint in Wallonia. Our dream team speakers, whom I will introduce to you in a bit, will make sure to address your concerns from different type of perspectives. Just a few information before we really start. As you could see, the microphone were automatically muted during the presentation, but you will be, of course, able to interact and unmute yourself during the Q&A. Feel free, of course, to leave your camera on. It's always better to see faces than just a black screen. One last thing, this session is recorded. And we will send it to you afterwards. And if you have any question during the presentation, you can always type them in the chat, and my colleague Justin, hi Justin, my colleague Justin will have an eye on the chat through the presentation, and all the question will be answered at the end. Okay. So as I told you, Justine and I, we work at Impact. We are organizing this market consultation today, but who is Impact? I cannot go to the next slide. Oops. Just a second. Justine, I think I need to go back to hosts.
Yeah, you should be able to go to the next slide without it, but
it's not. Sorry. Okay, I think it's working now.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. So who is Impact? Impact is actually a non-profit that has been acting on the shared mobility sector for more than 45 years in Belgium. And it was previously called Taxi Stop. And although the name has changed, the value, of course, they remain the same. Just a quick check among you guys, how many of you did know Impact? How many never heard about us or heard about Taxi Stop before? So it's still the same. Just thumbs up if you know Impact in the chat. Let me check. Justine, we have reactions? No? Okay. Then it's good that I introduce it to you. So globally, Impact's mantra is to do more with less, more sharing, more social interaction, more green spaces, more modal choices, more accessibility to mobility, and less pollution, less CO2, less cars, less using resources. This mission relies on three more pillars. The first one being solution is that we create solution and launch our own services. Among them, Carpool, Mobi Calendar, Cozy Wheels, Mobitwin. I invite you to check our website or even to contact us if you'd like to know more about these services we create. All our solutions are meant to be inclusive for all and everywhere in Belgium to allow for a more efficient mobility. In terms of innovation, we can say that we are not afraid to launch and to dream a new projects. We always look for new partners. We answer tenders, whether they are national or international tenders, to continue to innovate. And then in terms of awareness, our goal is to raise awareness. So we work a lot among governmental institutions or politicians and the large public, for example, by organizing different kind of events like the Shared Mobility Works, which is happening this week in Germany, or the impact sessions. Okay. Okay, I think there's a few seconds before the slide changes. Okay. So let's dive into the agenda we have prepared for you today. As I told you before, our speakers will give you all the tools you need from different angles. So first of all, the regional authority, the Service Public de Wallonie, represented by Jonathan Fretin, will explain you the project and go through some different budgetal aspects. After that, the city of Leuven, represented by Ilke Evenpool, will tell you about the successful experience of the Mobipoints in the city of Leuven. And then outodelen.net, represented by Bram Sears, will present about the potential of Mobipoints in smaller towns or even rural areas. And we will finish our session today with the Q&A. So again, feel free to type your questions in the chat. Okay. Well, just one last thing I would like to tell you is that if you're here today, it's probably because one day you decided to jump into the shared mobility sector, the shared mobility market. And congratulations for that, because that day you were a real visionary, given the potential that the market has to offer to them. And well, today the Walloon market is actually coming to you with, I believe, a promising project. That being said, let me introduce you to the first speaker, Jonathan Fretin. He works, as I told you, for the Walloon Public Service. He previously worked at Cartography, which is a private company acting on the development of location-based services. So we can say that Jonathan is a real expert in cartography, spatial analysis, and today public transport and intermodality have almost no more secrets for him. Just to get to know a bit more of Jonathan and his legendary determination, his favorite quote is, "When you have a hammer in your hands, you see every problem as a nail." Jonathan, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Rita, for the introduction. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Good. I will share my screen. You can see it? I cannot hear you, but I think I read yes on your lips. Working. Okay, good. Thank you. So, yeah, I will give you a general introduction to the eHubs project. So first, yeah, the entire project. So what it is, all the consortium, all the partners. So I think probably many of you have heard about it already. I recognize some of the names in the participant, but I think it's good to we start from the beginning. So what is this eHubs project? And then I will particularly focus on Wallonia. So where do we stand with this project in Wallonia? What it means for shared mobility providers, what opportunity this project offers, and then I will end. You will see it's just one bullet point in my last slide, but it's very important to say a few words about the context in Wallonia for shared mobility development, which will become. I think we will reach a momentum around that in Wallonia, so that's good to speak about that. So first thing first. What are the eHubs? Probably no surprise for you in this forum, but just to remind everyone what it is. So eHubs are physical clusters that combine different type of electric shared mobility. So that's really the key word is shared mobility but in the eHubs project, we are testing the electric solutions. So those physical clusters are directly connected to existing public transport, or if they are not directly connected, they are creating a network in a city with the idea, of course, to have a consistent offering from these last mile solutions that are frequently those shared mobility solutions to the bigger solution that public transport offer. And then, of course, it can vary in size and in type of offer that you can find to those clusters, depending on the public space available, but also just the size of the other mobility solutions that are present there. So those are the eHubs, and you see some examples also on the pictures there. And then in this eHubs project, Interreg project, you have a summary here of the objective of the project. So the objective is twofold. First, of course, it's about shared electric mobility. So to demonstrate that it's a affordable and attractive alternative to private cars. So that's one important objective. And then because we are testing electric solutions, it's also to show that it can contribute to emission reduction by less car use, electric solution, and then show that it has an impact on emission, and that we can reach a volume that has a significant impact. So that's the objectives. Here on this slide, you see the entire consortium. Several type of partners. Of course, the locations where the eHubs are implemented and tested. I will say a few words on that after. So from the six original cities to even more now. Then we also have in the consortium shared mobility providers, so Urbi and Carguru. One energy provider. We have universities partners, and we have several network organizations. So the project started in 2019. So it was supposed to end in 2021 with the pilot cities and the majority of the consortium that I showed you. But then there was a second wave, second budget for the capitalization call of the project, in which we are now, and that Wallonia has joined in that phase. So a few highlights from the first wave of the project that started in 2019. So the partners have developed a visual identity around the eHubs. So with the idea to have common visual branding material, common icons. So the eHubs are easily recognizable by users. We have several cities that now have eHubs that are up and running and in use, so we can really see them in action. So we have Leuven. We will go in much more details about Leuven after with Ilke. We have Dreux in France. We have Amsterdam, Nijmegen, Kempten, and Manchester. So all those cities have functioning eHubs already. So in parallel to that, we have partner universities that are working on mainly on two things. First, the user's behavior. So why would people, or why would not people use eHub solutions, and how can we influence that? So that's one stream of university work. And then the other side of things is the impact on emission reduction with those solutions. So analyzing usage data and see what impact it has. So I mentioned we had original providers, mobility providers partner, but others have joined also the project in a more, let's say, regular way with public tender. So electric car provider, for instance, so that there were not partners at the beginning, but they've joined also to offer car sharing solution also at the eHubs. And then the last one, contribution to the development and the promotion of the TOMP API. So for all the digital solutions that are coming with the eHubs development. So that's in summary, let's say the first wave of the project. And then now we are in this capitalization call. So three cities or areas have joined the project: Dublin in Ireland, Inverness in Scotland, and the Walloon region. The particularity for Wallonia is that it's not just one municipality that is developing eHubs, but it's a group of 5 municipalities that you see there. I will show you the map after, which I think it's very interesting to do it at a bigger scale than just a municipality. So I think for the providers, it offers a bigger area and more potential. Maybe also including, you will see some areas that are less densely populated, but then within the package, it can be interesting. And then for us, from the administration side of things, it allows us also to test how at a bigger scale we can help local authorities to implement those solutions, with the idea that those 5 municipalities are only the first 5, but that everywhere in Wallonia we want to develop more of those solutions. You see in the tables below some of the initial objectives within this Interreg project. So the budget was planned to develop 15 eHubs, and you see the amount of solutions that we want to develop at those eHubs. So 140 e-bikes, e-cargo bikes type of vehicles, and 15 electric cars. And you see below an estimation of the impact on the CO2 reduction. So yeah, this is the map of the area. So you see there the 5 municipalities. So it's on the line from Namur to Brussels. So you have Namur, La Bruyère, Gembloux, Ottigny, Louvain-la-Neuve, and Wavre. And you see on the table on the bottom right some of the figures. So you see those 15 eHubs and how they are spread between the 5 municipalities, and then an estimation of the services we would want to develop there. But of course, it will depend on discussions we have with shared mobility providers and what makes sense also for your business cases for those municipalities. So a few more words on zooming on Wallonia. So as I said, we have those 5 municipalities. We have worked with them to decide where we will do those 15 eHubs, but it's important to know that it's 15 that are part of the eHubs project, but it's part of a network that is much bigger than 15. So the 5 municipalities together have identified a network of more than 50 potential Mobipoints on the territory. So the 15 eHubs are the first ones, and there are some of the municipalities that are offering already a shared mobility solution, not electric, but so those points are somehow already there, maybe not to the full potential of eHubs, but so that's the potential there for those 5. So we are now in a phase, and this event today is part of this market consultation to really understand what is the potential in Wallonia, what are the providers or the shared mobility providers that are interested to develop services in Wallonia, particularly electric services for eHubs. And then with that, we will work with the municipalities to define the right tender for the providers. I said a word already on the visual branding material, which was developed in the first part of the project. So we are now adapting it for Wallonia. The idea is definitely, we realized during eHubs that it's difficult to use the same everywhere in all municipalities across countries, which is fine. But I think at least for Wallonia, we want to have the same visual identity everywhere for Wallonia. I think if we achieve that, it will already be very good for people who are using those services. And then, I want to end. So I was saying it's just one bullet point on this slide, but it's important word on the context in Wallonia. So end of 2021, so end of last year, a budget was allocated to the development of intermodality solution and infrastructure for pedestrian and bicycle solutions. So it's an envelope of 210 million euro for all the municipalities in Wallonia to develop more infrastructure. So we call them Mobipole in French. So it's those solutions, so Mobipoints, to offer mobility solutions in connection with public transport. So intermodality solutions. So you can join the existing public transport or go from the existing public transport to last mile solution via those Mobipoints. So I think it's really a great milestone for the infrastructure in Wallonia. So now all the municipalities are pushed to have project for those infrastructure, and then on top of that, of course, there will be a bigger need of services where shared mobility providers will have, I think, many more solutions than what they have now in terms of infrastructure. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. So, and in terms of timeline, yeah, the eHubs project is then the first and the most urgent for us to deploy solution. And as I said, it will allow us to also fine tune how we want to organize things from an administration point of view. And then the idea is to have replication in much more cities than those 5. And yeah, my last slide is just a few links on if you want to know more about the eHubs project and the contact for Wallonia authorities on the subject.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We can see that the statistic may show that Wallonia is lagging behind in terms of shared mobility. But the potential in the region exists, right? And Wallonia has clearly the financial means to allow for the necessary infrastructure and project development. So a lot of potential. Thank you. I will share my screen again. Up, nope. Up. Okay. Sorry for this technical inconvenience.
I think Jonathan is still sharing his screen.
Maybe that's why. Okay. Yeah, this is Jonathan's screen that we are seeing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oops.
Sorry.
No problem. Can you see now?
No.
No. And now?
No, but maybe you can just introduce Ilke without the screen.
The screen, yeah. Okay, I come back to you. Okay, so indeed, let's now travel a bit. We will not go too far. We'll go to Flanders, since as Jonathan told you, the project is already implemented in many other cities, and Leuven is one of them. So I now have the pleasure to introduce you our next speaker, Hilke Evenpoel. She represents the city of Leuven, where she holds the roles of project coordinator for the eHubs and Mobipoint project. She is a Mobipoint and shared mobility expert with a strong previous experience in natural resources management. Her favorite quote is, "I'd rather be on my bike than doing a tender in front of my computer." So let's see what it gives. Thank you, Hilke. The floor is yours.
Good morning to all of you. I hope you can see my screen already. Okay, so I will try to tell you a little bit the story of the eHubs in Leuven. I will first tell you a little bit about the current status, and then I will go a little bit more into detail about the uptake of the eHubs and the different shared mobility modes. And then I will try to end with a couple of advices, a couple of learned lessons. So, but first of all, the status of the eHubs in Leuven. Actually, at the moment, we have got 40 eHubs operational. There's 30 e-cargo bikes provided by Cargo, and they are actually stationed in 30 different places. We've got 40 Urbies, which are the e-bikes, and they are stationed on 5 6 different stations, and we are having about 17 electric vehicles, which are actually distributed amongst 12 different eHubs. And then recently, I think last November, we started deployment of parcel lockers as an additional service on our eHubs. So there's about 14 eHubs having now a parcel locker in place, and that's actually framed within the project of the ecozone in Leuven, where we'd like to have, together with bpost, an emission-free post and parcel delivery service. As you can see on the map, Leuven is a city of about 100,000 inhabitants with about 50,000 students. We've got our eHubs quite dispersed amongst in the city center, but also in the more peripheral areas. Just to give you a little look on how these eHubs look like and what kind of signage we have deployed. So this is one of the examples of the eHubs at the Back Academy, where we've got the bus station, we've got an e-cargo bike, we've got 1 or 2 electric vehicles, and I think about 3 or 4 normal shared cars, and we have also that parcel locker there. Another one you saw already the image in the first slide of Rita, I think, of Hevelen Station, where we've got the train station, we've got the bus station there, and additionally there we've got e-bikes, we have the e-cargo bike, we've got the regular bikes there, and we've also shared bikes. And there also in signage we have got the digital pole, hopping pole there. I think it might be interesting as the audience right now is more the shared mobility providers, to give a little bit more insight in the uptake of the shared e-mobility service in Leuven. So first of all, about the shared e-cargo bikes provided by Cargo. Cargo is one of the partners in the eHubs project. They are stationed in 30 different places. Since last July, we've got a whole fleet of the 30 bikes in Leuven operational. They operate in a back-to-one system, and they also are operating in a battery swap system. So we don't have the charging infrastructure at eHubs on location yet. To give you some figures about the usage, so this first figure gives you first of all a detail about the number of sign-ups. So at the end of January this year, we were actually passing the bench of 1,000 account users of Cargo, and you see that actually that's the growing process. If you look at the orange line, so this gives you an idea of the total active users. So per month, it's about in between 100 and 200 active users. So the number is still increasing, the line is still increasing. So that's one of the targets we still are looking at, to keep that usage increasing. Some figures about the ride duration. So most of the rentals are for less than 1 hour. Also, the one in between 1 and 2 hours is still very popular. So that's the figure you can see on the left-hand side. At the right-hand side, there you can see that the most popular days for renting or for using the e-cargo bike is on Wednesday and then also on Saturday. An interesting figure, we think, it's that the average distance per ride is about 5.5 kilometers. And also very interesting, but still indicative figure is that for the year 2021, we had about half a ride per day per bike. This is a figure about the geographical distribution and which eHubs are doing better regarding usage of the e-cargo bike. So you can see that there's some bigger circles. So these are the more popular places. So it's not that straightforward that you can take the conclusion that only the city center is doing it better. You can see that also at the eastern side, some cargos are doing very well. These are indeed also quite densely populated areas. Then I will try to share you some figures about the Urbis, the e-bikes. So at the moment we have got about 30, 40 bikes on streets. They have been operated in a back to many system. And they also operated most of the time in a battery swap system, which means that an extra operator actually maintained and kept an eye on the level of the batteries and changed the batteries when it was necessary. But last July, we actually changed a bit the system and we tried out on 2 stations where the bikes were actually charged in situ at the place. Because in the beginning we actually experienced some problems that it was quite difficult to manage the system to keep the battery of the bikes always at a high level, and therefore we also changed the system to have some battery charging in location itself. In terms of urban usage, so you can see also that there's like a slightly increasing line in terms of unique users per month. And also for Urbi, I think nowadays we have got about 1,200 people that have downloaded the app of Urbi, so potential e-bike users. In terms of average ride duration, it's a bit the same tendency as for the e-cargo bike. So also the short trips are rather popular, less than 1 hour, also 1-2 hours is still the case, but the longer rides are not that much popular. And then also in terms of popular days of the week, you can see that Wednesday and also Saturday, Sunday are the most popular days. And then something interesting that I'd like to share, that we operated in a back-to-many system, which means that people could actually lend out the bike at, for instance, the station of Leuvel, and they could leave the bike in the center. And we actually analyzed that more than half of the trips were used in that back-to-many system. In terms of locations and numbers of rides, here you can see, so we have operated the Urbi system, the e-bike system, during a couple of months on 14 different stations. So that's the left figure. And there you can see quite clearly that the station of Leuven and also the center of Leuven were the most popular locations. And then the right-hand side, so since last July, we limited the number of eHubs with e-bikes to 5 stations, and there you can still see that the center is doing very well, and also the station of Leuven was doing very well. For the shared e-cars in Leuven, we have got 2 different providers. We've got the cooperative provider of Partago, having 5 electric vehicles in Leuven. And then we have Cambio as the biggest commercial provider of shared cars, having about 12 or more, about 14 electric vehicles now on the street, but they are not yet all linked to eHubs. So these are the 2 commercial providers in Leuven. I think this figure might be quite interesting. It's indicative. So, but for Urbi, in terms of usage, it's about 0.2 rides per day per bike. For cargo, I told you already, it's about a half ride a day per bike. Then we've got the blue bikes in Leuven. They are doing very, very well. They are at the station of Leuven and also at the station of Heverlee. This is the figure of 21, which is a bit, not a very representative figure because of COVID. At that, in 2000, 2021, they were doing almost half rides a day. But nowadays they are doing very well. I think they are doing almost 1 day per bike one trip per day per bike, sorry. And then for Cambio, it's more than 1 day per trip per car, and Partago, it's also half a trip per day per car. So this just to give you a general image of the usage. In terms of lessons learned, so this is actually the figure of the Cambio and Partago users in Leuven. It's a system that we have started already a lot of years ago, and you can see that that's really a gradual process. For Cambio, you can see that we are having more than 3,000 users nowadays. So we are actually moving from the innovators phase to the early adopters phase, and we hope to keep that growing tendency for the coming years. So, but I think it's important that any new process it's needing some time to land. Some other points of attention is that I think it's very important to have clear targets for both of us, for the city, and also for the provider, that you can have like just a clear and transparent relationship and a good dialogue with these clear targets in mind. As a city, there's many cases of having some other priorities in terms of determination, selection of location. So we also like to provide some shared mobility service in less densely populated areas. So we'd like to have that service in more than only the city center. In terms of service level for Leuven, it's really very important to get into a high service level. And then we think mainly of having a quality in fleet, in the vehicles. That's high quality in vehicles should lead to high fleet availability. And we think that the fleet availability should be always above the level of about 90%. So this is translated in high technical criteria, in high level of user friendliness, and in good maintenance criteria. For Leuven, it's really very important to have a very good interchange about data, and also growing much more into digital integration together with the providers. I just explained to you that for certain services, I think the provider is actually looking at some local company, local provider, local actor who can help with rolling out the service, and therefore we think it's really good to be locally embedded, and we would like to focus on a social economy partner. We also really focus on partners who are still innovative and puts lots of emphasis on the smart side of the business. So that's about high service level. Then about pricing. In Leuven, we think it's really important that the provider can come up with different formulas in pricing, so that there's the subscription possibility. We also focus, or would like to focus much more on the less advantaged people, so on the inclusiveness approach of shared mobility, and therefore we think it's important if the provider can also think about the reduced tariff for these specific target groups. And then also we think that the reservation of shared mobility service also for the bikes would be a big advantage if that can be provided. In terms of usage, I think it's important that it's a doubled effort, that from the city, but also from the provider, there are efforts made in communication and nudging to get to that better usage figures. And we also believe that to get good usage, it might be very, very use and very worthwhile to look to complementary use between, for instance, local companies and then also the public, to have a usage that it's full day, much more in terms of use. And then I think my last slide. So for Leuven, we think it's important for the provider that they can have some longer term guarantee. Therefore, we actually tender as a concession with a duration of 5 years, which can be prolonged for 4 years actually. It's within the terms of concession of public service. We believe that there is a high financial risk for the provider, mainly in the starting years when it's about new shared mobility services, for instance, for the e-cargo bikes. And therefore, Leuven provides a temporary financial intervention for these mobility services for the strategically selected locations. And this intervention is actually related with usage. We also think that for shared mobility service in the more peripheral areas, it's like a moderate financial risk for the provider, also mainly in the starting years, and therefore also we try to come up with a temporary financial intervention. Also for the e-cars, we do realize, we are aware that it's a bit a step also in the business case for shared mobility providers to go from the regular cars to the electric cars. So therefore also we think that like a little bit of support, financial support might help to get the transition moving on more smoothly. And then we are aware of the parking issues for the bikes, but also and mainly for the cars in cities as Leuven, and therefore we try to look together and to look for solutions together with the mobility service providers, and we work station based. Then we'd like to have very visible stations, very accessible stations, and with a clear signage, so that people can easily find and can be easily just being convinced to use the shared mobility services. I think that's what I wanted to tell you. Thank you for your attention. And if there's a question, always very welcome.
Thank you very much, Ilke. Thank you. I like how you said that the project is a real partnership between the cities and shared mobility operators. They should really work as a tandem in this great Mobipoint eHubs adventure. So thank you. And indeed, Leuven is quite a city with lots of business potential for the Mobipoints, and I believe that many cities in Wallonia can be compared to the case of Leuven. But how about smaller towns or even rural areas? Our next speaker will answer the question. Let me introduce you, Bram Seus. He works at autodelen.net as a policy and program coordinator. His domain of expertise is mobility hubs and electrification. So it's good that he's here with us to share his knowledge with us. Before this, Bram was working at the European Parliament and he loves playing bass guitar. Bram, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Rita. I will share my screen. And if everything is correct, you can now see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So thank you for the invitation. On the agenda today, I will shortly also introduce autodelen.net, and I will talk a bit about how to create successful business cases in mainly rural areas, based on a couple of good practices and some conclusions. But first of all, as Rita mentioned, I work for autodelen.net since 2018, and our main mission is to promote and support the usage of shared mobility modes in Flanders and Brussels. So we are a network organization that is active in that region. We are also one of the partners in the eHubs project since the start, and we are also one of the co-founders of the Flemish Mobihub Association, which is an NGO only focusing on promoting and supporting operators, municipalities, etc., with mobility hubs. To give you a little bit of the idea, I added some quick slides about the current market situation in Belgium. So for car sharing, well, maybe good to say also, we focus mainly on car sharing, but we tend to also expand our mission a bit towards other forms of shared mobility, especially going to bike sharing, for example. So for car sharing, here you see a lot of different operators. Most of the operators in Belgium are round-trip operators, which is quite traditional in Western Europe, that you have mainly round-trip operators compared to other regions in Europe. Going from big ones all to smaller corporations. On the right side, you see the free-floating schemes. At this moment in Belgium, there are 2 free-floating schemes available, Poppy and Green Mobility in Ghent, Antwerp, Mechelen, and Brussels. And also peer-to-peer car sharing. You have 3 operators. On the right side, you have GetAround, which is based on the market price. And on the left side, you have a quite unique system in Europe, being Dégage and Cozy Wheels, which is peer-to-peer car sharing based on the real cost of the car. So that's for car sharing. Also for bike sharing, many different schemes. Most of them are active in the free floating market, but also in the back to one and peer-to-peer bike sharing. For example, you see Cozy Wheels and Dégage also have a peer-to-peer bike sharing models. So a lot of things happening there. What I can also tell, to give you a little bit of an overview, we created an annual report on the state of car sharing in Belgium. And as mentioned by the previous speakers, you see a lot of differences between the regions. I mean, in absolute numbers, Flanders is scoring really good with more than 100,000 car sharers. Also a lot of rides, a lot of vehicles. Brussels is doing also very well, being the fact that they have less inhabitants, of course, which means that around 8% of the inhabitants of Brussels are car sharing users have ever used a shared car. So that's quite a lot. And you see that Wallonia at this moment is a bit behind, but we are very happy that the Wallonian government is also want to try to speed up the process. What is also interesting, of course, the average ride time is around 7 hours, but you see a lot of difference between the different models of car sharing, going from 50 minutes in the free floating scheme to 29 hours for peer-to-peer cost-based car sharing. So really a lot of difference there. Also in the average distance, you see a lot of differences. Sorry. I have a bit of a cold, so I'm sorry if I have to cough a little bit. And also in the number of rides, you see a lot of differences between the operational models. Something I didn't add to my slides, but it's also interesting to see is the average usage per day. You see also a lot of differences there for peer-to-peer car sharing. It's 54%. I mean, usage, we mean the the average booking time, of course, which doesn't mean that the car is riding around 50% of the time. For round trip, this is 29% in Flanders or in Belgium. Excuse me. And for free floating, it's 45 minutes. That's, but in the end, it's still more than the average private car, which is being used only 2.4% of the time for the first car, and for the second car, it's even lower. It's 2% of the time. So you see a lot of different business models within these different forms of car sharing. So how do you create successful business cases? I think based on our experience, we are not a provider ourselves, of course, but I think 3 things are really important if you want to create a successful business model. And linked to that, of course, a successful shared mobility scheme. in the city or in rural areas. I mean, it's for us, it's everywhere the same. And it's about the framework, it's about the demand, and it's about the offer. And if there's no demand, you can add as much offer as you want. It will not work. If the framework is not right, your demand and your offer will also not be in line. So these three things are really important to create an optimal environment for shared mobility. And if we talk about framework, this can be quite broad. I mean, you have, for example, shared mobility action plans. A lot of Flemish municipalities have these action plans into place, and they can also have a lot of elements on the framework. The concessions, for example, like Leuven was mentioning, having a accreditation as a provider. These sort of things can be part of an action plan. Parking policies, of course, very important. The different models of car sharing have different needs. Station-based or round-trip car sharing needs specific parking spots, while free-floating schemes mainly need parking permits for a certain area. Which is also very important with the framework is, of course, the stick measures. I mean, if you want to make car sharing work or shared mobility work, you also need to disencourage private car ownership. And I mean, in Belgium, many of the cities still have 1 or 2 free parking permits. I think Leuven, there it's quite expensive already. But for example, in Antwerp, you can get 2 parking permits for free. And of course, this does not help to support the transition towards shared mobility. And also some carrot measures, of course, incentives for users, for example, refunding their annual subscription if that's necessary or the operator has that. Just to give you an idea, something I saw this week or last week, it's the parking permits in Ghent, and you see that the number of private parking permits is decreasing since 2019, so going down to 43,000. And at the same time, the number of permits for shared cars are increasing. So you see that there's a potential correlation between the two of them. And here, even in Ghent, the first permit is still for free. So I can imagine if you put a bit more the stick measure and make it also not for free, that the number of car sharing permits will increase even more. Next, of course, the demand, and this can be if you want to make it work in rural areas, you need to communicate about it. You have general communication campaigns, specific communication campaigns. Really important also is to organize test events where people can test their shared vehicle at that moment, or sometimes test it for a longer period. For example, one of the projects we are doing is sharing neighborhoods in many different Flemish cities where people can test it for 30 days, and they have to their private car has to stay in the garage. So it's a really good thing to do. Social media campaigns, also a lot of things to focus also on is, for example, give information to potential users. We have on our website a map with nearly all car sharing providers, so you can check what are the vehicles available in my area. Also, one of the things we try to do is convincing people of the benefits. And one of the benefits, of course, is the fact that it costs less than a private car. And we created a cost calculator for that, savewithcarsharing.be, which is actually calculating the differences between the cost of your private car compared to all different pricing models amongst the Belgian car share providers. So these things really help. And what is, of course, really important is that you, with your demand, if you do campaigns, is that you must focus on life-changing moments. We know that from a scientific point of view, that people are more willing to change their behavior at their life-changing moments. So that means when they get a new job, when they are moving, etc. So these are the target moments you must focus on with your communication. And then lastly, about the offer, of course, you can have a good communication campaign and good policy frameworks, etc. But if there is no offer, I mean, no one will use it. So there should be a basis offer. And in Flanders, many municipalities work with a purchase guarantee, which means that the operator is financed to take to a minimum to that he doesn't have to take the risk himself, and the more the vehicles are riding around or being used, the less it will cost the municipality. Moreover, many of the municipalities in rural areas in Flanders are using these vehicles themselves, which makes it more profitable for the operators as well. So that's also a good suggestion. If you go to Wallonia with eHubs, is that you convince municipalities to use the vehicles themselves. Promote peer-to-peer car sharing is also interesting if there is no political will, for example, to financially support shared mobility. You can also always start with sharing private vehicles at that stage, which can also be linked at eHubs. Housing developments, which is a really interesting one, which is actually addressing the financial support towards a third party, which in this case will be the housing developer. This is really an interesting one to speed up the process, the number of vehicles in the area. The negative thing there is that it's mostly it takes quite some years before you see the concrete realizations. And lastly, if we talk about offer, as I mentioned, sometimes municipalities are using it. It's really important to focus on different target groups, because you have businesses, municipalities using the vehicles during the day. You have families, for example, using it during the weekend. So the combination between companies, municipalities, and private usage outside the hours makes a good mix for a successful business case. To round up, I just want to give some short good practices, what I believe are good practices. The first one is the municipality of Schoten, close to Antwerp, where they tendered a bike sharing scheme, a combination between back to many and free floating, with around 250 bikes in the municipality. And there is an annual financial contribution from the municipality towards the operator to support, and also in the maintenance cost, etc., replacement of bikes, etc. It's supported by the municipality, and it's also being used quite good at this moment. The second one is a car sharing scheme that is linked to the Mobipoint in Glabbeek, which was one of the earliest Mobipoint in Flanders. In the meantime, rebranded to Hopin to the Hopin branding. And in this case, the shared vehicles there, they are actually co-financed by the local shops, because they can advertise on the vehicles, which makes the business case for the operator also more doable. Last case, sorry, not my last case, nearly my last case of good practice is the collaboration in Southeast Flanders with the intermunicipal organization Solva. They came up with the idea to have a regional car sharing project 3 years ago, I think 4 years ago. And they tendered for this, and in the end, 15 municipalities are working together there with around 30 vehicles, which is really interesting to see that you don't have to do it yourself, but this intermunicipal cooperation really can contribute on decreasing the costs, and also make it more interesting for the operator as well, than having to apply to a tender every time in a small municipality. Sometimes it's much easier for all parties to combine forces. And last example is not in Belgium, but in the Netherlands. It's a case of North Holland, where shared mobility modes are linked to the Mobi-hubs over there. And in this case, there was really nothing of shared mobility in this area, but the province came up with the idea to make the area more accessible for tourists and for people who want to visit family. So they are installing, or they installed mobility hubs, around 50 mobility hubs, if I'm correct. And they also tendered for operators, which are working as a white label product under the branding of Mobipoint. So you can book the cars, the bikes, etc., via the Mobipoint app or website. And in this case, it's also interesting. There's a financial contribution, of course, from the province, but this contribution is decreasing over years, but it will take a couple of more years before it will become profitable. To conclude, I think many of the things I said today is that if you want to introduce shared mobility on the countryside, I think you have to be realistic, and there will be financial support in the first years. I mean, if not, it's not really commercial profitable for the operators. So support from a municipality or another third party will be important. Of course, not only focus on this financial support, but what is as important as the support is that you get a good framework and that you focus on the demand, and that's something providers can play a role in, but also, of course, local municipalities, other stakeholders have to play a big role in that. So this collaboration between different parties is really important. And last but not least, as I mentioned, third parties are a catalyst. Project of housing developers, companies can really play a big role in increasing the offer and increasing the business case usage of shared mobility modes in rural areas. So that's it in a nutshell. I'm looking forward to maybe some questions.
Thank you, Juan. Thank you very much. Thank you for showing that shared mobility in rural areas can work, of course, with a bit of ambition, a bit of patience, and a good collaboration with the cities or municipalities or even the province. So thank you. Well, we're getting at the end of this market consultation, but I'm sure these presentations have raised some questions. Justine, shall we go through the chats to see what has been raised?
There's not a lot of questions, so that's a good news because we are like a bit late already, but there is some question. The first one, I guess, is for Jonathan, is about the project from Sofico, and it's about is it related to the eHubs project or not?
Yeah, just a few words. To be honest, I'm not very familiar with that project. I understood that it's somehow on hold at the moment, and yeah, the short answer is that there is no real direct connection with it. Our focus is really on transport solution and all the chain from public transport to last mile solution. So I think that's our angle, and so yeah, short answer is no direct link.
Okay. Second question is from Alice, who works for Provelo, and she is asking about the agenda and deadline of the project because she's interested in it but want to know more.
So yeah, of course, individually we want to go fast. We want to have solutions yesterday already, but yeah, we have to do this in the legal framework, and we want, as I explained, also something that is not only working for the 5 eHubs cities, but that is working also for other cities after. So that is taking maybe a bit more time. But the eHubs project time frame is until end of 23. So for that project, for those 15 eHubs, we have to go really fast. Yeah, no exact date, but that's our timeline now. And yeah, I saw there are also question on how to continue. So we can continue discussions. We have many meetings, one-to-one with operators also to discuss the next step. So yeah, feel free to contact me about that. And there is also this event, the 16th of June, organized by Impact with the municipalities, where operators are also invited. I think it will be a good opportunity to put together operators and municipalities, to discuss solutions and potential for the future. So.
Yeah, we will send you an invite after this event to the operators to invite you to the event that's happening on the 16th of June, so you can come and talk to the different municipalities to share about what is interesting for you and for them. So you will receive an email after this one. Another question was for Ilk about how do you define the rides per day and the rides per vehicle, because the number seems low to.
Yeah, we did a very simple calculation in terms of what's the total number of rides in a year, and how big is the fleet, and then you've got that average number. But we all have to be aware that also the winter months are then calculated in, and the usage of bikes, for instance, during the winter months, yeah, we all know that it's much less. So that might be one of the reasons that the average number per year is that low. But okay, that's one of the big challenges to get that figure increasing. I don't know if that's the right answer on the question.
I don't know if Jean-Marie has his answer, but I guess that's an answer.
The rights, it's per person or per vehicles?
It's per person.
Okay.
Sorry, it's per bike. So you've got the total number of rides,
Yes.
and you've got the fleet, so the number of bikes. So then you just calculate, there's that total number of rides, and you divide it per number of the vehicles. And for the 365 days a year. And that's why I just want to say that, yeah, during the winter months, the usage it's much lower.
Yeah. We have 2 more questions, and then we will have to end this event because we are already late. The next one is from Anas, who works for Lime, and he is asking about the e-scooters and how they could be involved in the eHubs project. I don't know, Jonathan, if you want to answer or if.
Yep. So short answer also is yes. It can be part of eHubs, particularly now that the way to do e-scooters, we see that it's changing also with the regulation that municipalities are taking, and that more and more they want to have drop-off zones for the e-scooters. So if there is at the eHubs a drop-off zone, then it could be also one of the solutions there.
Okay, perfect. And the last one is about public transport and for the tech, and will they be involved to choose the localization of the Mobipoint?
Yeah, so for the eHubs, yeah, they are informed about the choose of the location of the eHubs. And then for the future, so this project that I mentioned, where all municipalities will develop intermodality nodes, they've all been asked to work in cooperation with tech in Wallonia, to particularly if they want to develop Mobipol where there is existing tech stops already, then it has to be done in cooperation with them, of course. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I think we will leave you here, and of course you can reach to us by email if you have more questions. And we, for the operators, we are like looking forward to meet you in person to explain a little bit about the deadline and how we can work together. So feel free to contact us. Rita, I let you end the meeting.
Yeah, I will just put our contact in the chat so that if you have any other type of question, you can always contact us. Thank you all so much for your participation in this market consultation. I hope it was an inspiring one for you. As Justine told you, we are planning to organize the next event, this time with the municipalities on mid of June. So for those who are interested, you will receive a form by email. You will all receive it by email, and then you will just get back to us if you'd like to participate to the next event. We will also send you the slides by email and I think the replay of this session. So thank you all again and have a great afternoon.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.